Hey guys, thanks for joining me for episode number 27 in my 30 videos in 30 days project. It's actually daytime today because I got off work a little early, so I'm not exhausted like I usually am. But today I'm going to answer a question from Joe from STC Podcast. His Twitter handle is Angry or AC Decepticon, which stands for Angry Canadian Decepticon. He has another podcast he does, Transformers and Beer, all about Transformers collecting and beer, I presume. So go check him out. But he asked me questions about my comic book collection, which I'm glad he asked because I love talking about my comics. So I'm probably going to go a little guerrilla here and grab the camera so I can show you some of the comics that I have up on my wall because he asked about those. He asked me if they were just kind of random comics or there was some kind of reason why the ones that I have up are up, and if I still collect the comics today. So I'm going to grab the camera and show you some stuff on my wall. Okay, so first I have some comics up here on my desk, and I did kind of purposely pick these out because they kind of represent a lot of the cartoons that I watched when I was a kid, and these are all comics that I had when I was a kid. I never bought any of these. You know, as an adult, I got them out of my collection. So as you can see, a lot of these are number ones. Got Masters of the Universe number 1. This is not number 1. I just always like that cover. This is a number 1, Transformers. That was a great comic book series when I was a kid. I loved the Transformers series. Then we have Mask number 1, which was a great cartoon, and also toy series. I loved Mask. Silverhawks number 1, one of my favorite cartoons as a kid. I love the Silverhawks. Very cool cartoon. Then you have Ninja Turtles, not number 1, number 11 actually. And then V, I had a bunch of V comics. I think I do have number 1, but I like this cover better, so I put this one up. That was a great series when I was a kid as well. I love the V series. And you just got a Smurfs because, you know, I had it, and it also represents television that I watched. So I just kind of liked having these up in the front here as kind of a broad representation of some of the stuff that I used to watch and play with when I was a kid. And then down here, you probably don't see these too often. Alright, so I have an Indiana Jones comic because that represents, you know, obviously a retro theme that I really enjoyed. One of my favorite movies of all time, Tim Burton's Batman. This is the comic adaptation of it, which is really cool. And over here, again, these are kind of random over here. I just kind of picked covers that I like. And this pin board is here. I'm going to do a room tour one day. But this pin board is here because it covers up my electrical panel. So that's why I already had the pin board there when I turned this into a retro room. And so I pinned up a bunch of comics. So I just got some cool Spider-Man. I love Spectacular Spider-Man, probably one of my favorite series of all time. For back in the day, there's 3 of them right in a row there. This is not actually a retro comic. That is a more modern one that had a really cool cover. As you can see, there's no title or no anything on the cover. It was the first of the Dark Horse Star Wars series, which was fantastic. And that ended last year when Marvel took over. Or actually, I think it was earlier this year. So then you got a cool Captain America. I always liked this cover. It was really cool looking. Obviously, you got some more representations of some stuff that I used to get into when I was a little older. RoboCop, Terminator, another Star Wars comic there. And that's some really old stuff. Buck Rogers, Atari Force. These are kind of video game related stuff. Bayou Billy. Another cool Star Wars one that I had when I was a kid. And then just a Batman. Then you have the McFarlane Spider-Man number 1. I love this Spider-Man series when it came out in the 90s. I collected all of them. All the ones that McFarlane did. So I have all those in my collection. Then there's an old Flash Gordon. I thought that was kind of cool. And then The Last Starfighter, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid too. And that's the comic representation of it, number 1. Let me see if I can get you in there a little bit. So those are the ones I've posted on my wall. So I think that's pretty much it, yeah. Alright, so I brought you down to ground level here with me to show you my... these are 2 boxes of comics that I've had since I was a kid. And one of the few things that I still have from my childhood and my teenage years is my comics. I think I've mentioned to a lot of you before, a lot of the stuff that the toys I have and stuff, I had to, in a lot of the video games as well. I'm hunting to get them back from my childhood because I think much like a lot of us, parents gave a lot of our stuff away as we aged, and we didn't know it was going to be of value to us, so we got rid of all that stuff. And now we're, a lot of us are getting it all back. But the comics I did keep, so I'm very thankful for that. Now, Joe, you probably will be a little disappointed to hear that I don't care about the whole Minty thing and the spines being broken. I read all these, and I didn't care about their condition too much. I do have them all in, bags with backings, because that's just what, anybody did back then. But I'll pull them out and read them. I don't care about the collecting aspect of them more than just having them to read. So all the series that I had in here, I did collect Spider-Man. This is all the McFarlane ones. So I've got like 1 through, looks like 16 or so. And Todd McFarlane, or McFarlane, however you say it. That's some really cool covers. You can see that. So I really liked his artwork back in the day. Wasn't my favorite. He was a little overly, what's the word? Detailed and just kind of over the top with some of his artwork, but it was really cool. As you can see, I'm not even caring about the order right now, so I'm going to put these back. But here's all my Transformers comics. You'll like these, Joe. I had a whole lot of Transformers comics from back in the day. I'm assuming you can see those okay. So, again, I've got like 1 through, I don't know how far, but I was really into Transformers a lot. I loved them when I was a kid, and still like them a lot today, except for the dumb movies. And Joe and I had that conversation on the STC Podcast when I was a guest about how terrible the movies were. But everybody knows that, so I'm not going to pull all these out, but I collected Web of Spider-Man. There's a whole lot of miscellaneous stuff. Let me see here. Justice League stuff. Wasn't the biggest DC fan, but I did like, some of the stuff. Justice League. Here's, let's see what else. Here's some Fantastic Four stuff. The Thing. It's just kind of random. But the main things that I did collect the Punisher. All the Spider-Man titles. The Amazing Spider-Man. Web of Spider-Man. Batman. I'm a huge Batman fan. A lot of Batman comics in here. Detective comics as well. So I got a big section of Batman stuff. Legends of the Dark Knight. Look, some of that artwork is just so cool. Some of the 90s had just... It was kind of the peak of the comics. And I was a teenager in the 90s, and it really kind of peaked. That's when they started doing all the multiple covers thing, and it kind of became more of a collector's thing, and you didn't see them in the grocery stores as much. But when I was a kid, I used to get my comics from 7-Eleven and the Acme, the grocery store, because they had the little spinny, wireframe shelf thing that you'd spin around and had the comics on it. But now you have to buy them at specialty shops. But thankfully, I have just the coolest comic book shop that I go to frequently called Third Eye Comics. It's in Annapolis, in Maryland, and it is just amazing. I think I mentioned on Twitter, Peter Mayhew was there the other day doing a signing. They get all the top artists and comic book creators. I'm not sure how he does. He just has 2 comic book shops, and I'll put a link in the description to his. He's got a YouTube channel. His name's Steve. He's the coolest guy in the world, and has just an awesome comic book shop. So I'm very thankful that I have that. They also sell tons of merchandise and toys and clothing. It's just the coolest shop in the world. So I get all my comics from there that I collect now, and I'll get to that in a minute. Here's some Fantastic Four comics. Kind of like them a little bit. What else? Ghost Rider. I was into him for a little while. But I don't know. I've never counted these. I've got a couple hundred comics, I think, here. Lobo was a cool series that from DC. I really liked that. That was a really cool series in the 90s. Kind of different. I like kind of the weird stuff. I used to collect these Marvel Universes that had all the characters in there, their little backstories and everything. That was kind of neat. What else here? That's pretty much it. Tons of Spider-Man. Oh, okay, and then he also asked me what I collect today. So I'm going to show that. I'm going to put this all back and get back up on my chair so it's not so awkward. So funny enough, I just went to the comic book shop today on the way home from work. And here's a Third Eye Comics shopping bag there. So I do collect pretty much just one series today, and that is the Star Wars stuff. Because I can't afford to buy comics for, Batman, Spider-Man, and anything else. I just have to pick one. because the Star Wars series is not just one comic; it's like 3 or 4. You've got the regular. Now, let me go back a little bit. Marvel took over. I think I mentioned after Dark Horse, because Disney bought out Marvel, and Marvel has the rights now to Star Wars, as everybody knows. I'm sorry, Disney has the rights to Star Wars, and Disney owns Marvel. So Dark Horse had a great run. They had some really good series, and I had nothing but good things to say about the Dark Horse Star Wars stuff. And it was kind of sad to see them kind of end, but I have all their stuff, their Star Wars stuff, and it was just really, really good. But Marvel's doing a really good job. I'm very happy. I was a little nervous to see how that was going to turn out. But there's the Star Wars, the regular Star Wars series, which they're only up to number 13, and this is the latest one. Then there's the Darth Vader series, which is really good too. This is all the retro stories. Take place. These take place. This takes place, I think, in between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. And the Star Wars series, I believe, is shoot. I get them all mixed up. But anyway, they're really good, and I recommend any Star Wars fan or anybody who wants to jump back into comics. This is a good place to start because the artwork's great, the stories are great, and I'm really digging them. So that's that, and there was also a really good series that anybody else getting hyped for the movie can get this Shattered Empire series. It was just a 4-book series that ties Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens together. So this was really, really cool. So they're still out there in the comic. You can probably get all 4 of them still in regular comic book form. Eventually there'll be a graphic novel form or a collection. You'll have to buy the hardback or whatever. But I also picked up a brand new Dark Knight series. I was a huge fan of the Frank Miller. I think I have it somewhere. This is my original Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller graphic novel, which is a classic. And anybody who wants to read anything good about Batman has got to check this out. This has been, basically almost all the Batman movies have been trying to copy this in some shape or form. Even Tim Burton's Batman kind of pulled from this to give it the more serious tone. And this was just an unbelievable graphic novel. And still is a good read today. And now the Superman versus Batman, Batman versus Superman. As you can see, I'll show it in here. This is where they're getting it from. They had a big fight in here. You can see some of that. There's Superman in this book, and they got into a big fight. And the movie sounds like it's going to try to steal from this a lot as well. So I'm not finding much. But this was some of the artwork in here is just unbelievable. I mean, it's just awesome. There's that light again. Just awesome stuff. So I love this, and they came out with a second one, Dark Knight Returns 2, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago or something. It was awful. Frank Miller was just, I think he's doing a lot of drugs or something. The artwork was bizarre, and the story made no sense. And everybody was like scratching their heads when it came out because this was so good. But this apparently is a direct sequel to this. So I figured for the first time I'll try something new because it just came out. I haven't read it yet, just got it today. So I'm looking forward to checking this out and seeing how it is. Because I really do miss the superhero stuff and Batman and Spider-Man stuff. So I'm running long here. This was kind of weird when I haven't been slowing myself down. I noticed I'm talking really fast. So I'm just all excited because I'm talking about superheroes and comics and Star Wars. So I probably was stuttering a lot there. So I'm trying to, I got to slow myself down a little bit. So I know that's, when I watch this one back, I'm going to be like, ugh, Duke, you need to calm down some. So anyway, thank you so much for the question, Joe. Appreciate it. And go check them out on their podcast, Transformers and Beer, and STC Podcast. Those guys are pros. And actually, they just had Girlfriend Versus, Curtis from Girlfriend Versus on. I finished it up today. Great episode. So bravo, guys. They come out with an episode every Friday. Good stuff. Thanks so much, and I'll see you tomorrow for number 28. Take care.